Hey guys, it's Kevin the VFR pilot, and for today's student pilot pointer, we're going to do a lap around the pattern, Joey style from Friends. So if you're a Friends fan, if you got a wife or whatever, I know you've seen a bunch of them, but there was one time where Joey on Friends went to Great Britain and he would step in the map. So that's what we're going to do today. We've got our runway out here drawn in chalk on the north ramp of Shelby County. So we've got our hold short. We're going to pull up to our hold short and we're going to chair fly this thing all the way around this pattern. We've been cleared, we're ready for takeoff. We pull out here, base final's clear, we taxi out on the 1.6, we get lined up on the 1.6, and we start to advance our throttle to full, holding rudder pressure as needed to maintain center line. What we're looking for is our rotation speed, VR. So we're going to get into the V speed just a little bit. Whatever your rotation speed is, and a 172, it's going to be about 60 knots. We're going to start to ease back a little pressure on that yoke. We're going to let the nose wheel get light, and we're going to let the airplane fly itself off the ground. Once the airplane is flying, we're going to pitch for VY. Right there is VY. We're going to pitch for VY. Okay, so in a 172, we're looking for about 70 knots. All right, so we're pitching up 70 to 75 knots. If that's not exactly right for your airplane, get it with your CFI and find out what VY is, your best rated climb in your airplane. So we're going with 70 knots in this example, but we're flying out, holding center line, VY, looking for our crosswind turn, CW, our crosswind turn. When do we do our crosswind turn? At 500 AGL. We here are at 586 feet above sea level. So on our altimeters, it's reading 1,000, but we're at 500 AGL for this crosswind turn. So we're making sure to hold VY. We have VY there in the chalking end. We're keeping a good coordinated turn. We're making our radio calls. Whatever traffic pattern you're in, whatever airplane you're in, it's crosswind for runway 16, because 16 is where we took off. We're climbing out, maintaining VY, waiting for the point when we are 45 off the end of the runway, about a half mile from the runway, and we're going to turn downwind, making sure to still hold VY. So we're pitching for our airspeed. We're keeping the airplane good and coordinated, and we're climbing out to 1,000 AGL. 1,000 AGL is going to be our pattern altitude. All right, so here at 1,600 feet. So we're on the downwind. We're at 1,600 feet. We're going to start to back that throttle out and trim the airplane as needed to maintain our approach speed. In a Cessna 172, we like an approach speed for most of them of 90 knots. So we're trucking along in the downwind. We're trimmed, throttle set. We're maintaining 1,600 feet here, which is 1,000 AGL for your pattern altitude at 90 knots, and all the way through the downwind. You see we've got 90, and there's our segmented circle showing that we're at the midfield point. So we're at midfield on the downwind. We're at 90 knots. That's flap speed in our 172. All right, so we confirm flap speed. We're going to get 1 notch of flaps. Boom, there's 1 notch. We're continuing the downwind, and we are looking to get set up a beam the numbers. All right, so we're a beam the numbers right there. We're in line with 1.6. All right, so we're a beam the numbers. We're in a Cessna 172. We're going to pull the carb heat, and we're going to back that throttle on out and establish a 500-foot descent. We're going to trim as needed to hold that 500-foot descent, and we're slowing on down. We get 45 off the end of the runway. We should be approaching 80 knots as we get ready for our base turn. At our base turn, we're going to make a radio call that we're turning base, our traffic pattern, the airplane we're flying, turning base. We're coming back into runway 16, and then our airport again. And we're letting the airplane slow down to 80 knots. As we're approaching final, we're going to get flaps 2. Trim as needed, throttle as needed to maintain that 500-foot descent at 80 knots. We're going to check and make sure base to final is clear. So we're going to look right, we're going to look left, base final is clear. We're going to make a radio call that we're turning final, and we're going to let the airplane start to slow down. In a 172, we're slowing down to 70 knots. So we get set up, we're at 70 knots, we're going to go flaps full. Flaps 3 or full, whatever it is for your particular airplane. We're adjusting throttle and our trim as needed as we're coming in on this final. We want to make sure to hold the wings level. We're using rudder to keep us lined up on the runway, and we're going to pick out a point on that runway. I usually like that first line just past the numbers, so I line that up on my windscreen. I look at it and I try to keep that point at the same spot on my windscreen. I'm just tracking it on down. I'll glance down at my airspeed, make sure I'm still on 70. We're coming on down, we're going over the threshold. We're going to pull out the last little bit of throttle we have, if we have any. If we were high, then we need to pull that throttle out way back here. If we're a little low, then we come back in with a little throttle, because throttle is our altitude. We're pitching for airspeed, our throttle is our altitude. So we're going over the threshold. We want to get that last little bit of throttle out, and we're transitioning to look at the end of the runway. Using rudder as needed to keep us on that center line, and we're coming on down. We're looking at the end of the runway, easing back on that yoke just a little bit, letting us slow down. We want to make sure to still see the end of the runway. We don't want the dash to come up enough that we can't see the end of the runway. We're just easing back on that yoke a little bit to let the airplane slow down, and we should hear that stall horn go off just as we're getting ready to touch down. And that is a quick trip around the pattern. Get up with your CFI, have him go over this on a board or something with you, so you can write down on a piece of paper, take it home and study it. At the different points where you're going to want different configurations for your airplane and the speeds that he's going to be looking for to get you through the pattern in your airplane. Go home and study it. The airplane is a horrible environment for learning, so we want to know all this stuff on the ground, so when we get up there we can spend more time training instead of trying to go back through all of our memory drills and things like that. We want to know this stuff before we get in the plane and get up there flying. If you have any questions or anything, hit me up, message me on Facebook or through YouTube, whatever, and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. And check me out next week for another Student Pilot Pointer. This has been Kevin, the VFR pilot, and thanks for watching.